Today is definitely not a flyable day here in Pocatello, Idaho. So I'm going to be doing a little maintenance, checking out my wings, cleaning up my motors. Thought I would talk a little bit about the EOS Quattro since I made a little buzz in my last video about it. Some people loved it, some people hated it. So I thought I would talk about fuel consumption for me versus my factory R, and also compare it to the previous machine I had that I flew for about 120 hours. And that was a Moster 185 dual start MY20 that was on this same frame as my factory R. The Quattro is actually on the new Power to Fly Cronus frame XL, which I absolutely love. Now, as a bigger guy, I've pretty much only flown with 140 centimeter props. Let's have a look at the flight that I made 2 days ago to check the fuel consumption of the Quattro. And I think you'll find in that flight I've got something special for you. Okay, we're taking off with 8 liters of fuel. Okay. Launch it!
It's not far down to paradise, at least it's not for me. If the wind is right, you can sail away, find tranquility. Oh, the canvas can do miracles, just you wait and see. Believe me, it's not far to Never Land. To pretend if the wind is right, you can find the joy of innocence again. Oh, the canvas can do miracles, just you wait and see. Believe me, sailing takes me away to where I've always heard. Just a dream in the wind to carry me. Soon I will be free.
So after our hour-and-a-half flight, looks like we burned right at about 6 liters. Now we're going to talk about fuel consumption. First of all, I want to start off by saying that I never get anywhere close to what the manufacturers say I'm going to get fuel consumption wise. For example, on my EOS Quattro, it's supposed to burn between 2.2 and 2.8 liters per hour. Now, I have a lower thrust to weight ratio of about 0.5 compared to your average paramotor pilot that has a thrust to weight ratio of about 0.7. In addition to that, I fly at much higher altitudes, and I fly wings that I'm typically heavily loaded on. So I see about 4 liters per hour on the EOS Quattro, and I've checked that 3 times. I did 2 one-hour flights, and the other day I did a 90-minute flight, and same results each time. The style of flying that I do for where I fly, 4 liters an hour. Now my factory R is supposed to burn about 3.3 liters an hour. But believe it or not, on my Luna 2, same type of flight, looking at several flights in my flight log, I keep pretty good records. I had a flight that was about an hour and 35 minutes. I burned 14 liters in this thing. So that puts it up right around 9 liters an hour, or at least in the high 8s. So I burn a lot more fuel than the factory R. Now we'll talk about my previous machine to the factory R, which was a MY20 Moster 185 dual start. It was also on a Power to Fly Titan XL frame. And I had several flights in my log that were about 90 minutes with this Luna 2 as well. And I would burn somewhere in the neighborhood of between 11 and 12 liters of fuel. Now I had a lot more hours on that machine than any other. I had about 120 hours on that machine, so I had quite a few flights and several that I could compare with the Luna 2. So that puts my fuel consumption up around somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 7.5 liters an hour on that particular machine. So it's pretty safe to say that even though I'm not getting what the manufacturer says, 2.2 to 2.8 liters per hour on this machine, I'm also not getting it on these machines. But what I will say is that I'm literally burning half the fuel on this machine when you compare it to a 2-stroke that I've been flying for the last couple of years. Pretty impressive. Getting ready to weigh these machines. And what I've done is I've configured them so that they're ready to fly for about 90 minutes. I've got just over 6 liters of fuel in the EOS Quattro, and I have right at 14 liters of fuel in the factory R. Now my factory R has a side reserve in it, and my EOS Quattro does not. So I'm going to be wearing my lap reserve. I'd also point out that the EOS Quattro frame, which is the Cronus XL, has a little more meat to it than my Titan XL, which is obviously a little bit lighter, not as much framework. We're going to get a weight on me. I got my flight suit on, my helmet. The only thing I'm missing are my glasses, my gloves, my GoPro. But for the most part, I am configured the way I fly. So at least within probably about 4 or 5 pounds. Okay, looks like I'm about 254. First up is the EOS Quattro. Scale zeroed out, and I'm gonna step on. I've got my reserve, 347.8. Now we're moving from the Quattro to the factory R. And since it's got the side reserve actually over here, we will leave this reserve off. Zeroed out, factory R. And we are 337.2. Now don't forget, your all-up weight also includes the weight of the glider, which in my case, the Luna 2 is 6 kilograms, and also the weight of my additional equipment. So let's figure GoPro, all the stuff I'm bringing with me to fly, so another 2 kilograms. So that puts the overall all-up weight on this machine at 165 kilograms, and on this particular machine, right about 160 kilograms. This machine makes more power than a Moster 185. Bottom line, it does. It doesn't make as much power as my factory R, but it absolutely makes more power than my previous MY20 Moster 185 dual start with the 268 reduction and a 140 prop. I absolutely love it. I think I pretty much have it tuned the way it needs to be for this altitude, although I am going to try a 125 jet just to see if there's a little more power that I can get out of it. So I just installed a 125 jet from a 128 jet, and I'm going to do a quick run up on the EOS Quattro so you can hear it. It's awesome. And then I'm also going to do a run up on the factory R so you can hear it as well. So I have the machines all cleaned up, put away. Probably ought to talk about the pros and cons so far of this EOS Quattro. Well, the pros are easy. I burn half the fuel that I do in any two-stroke that I've ever flown, and that is pretty significant. I also don't have to mix any oil, which is really nice. Oil changes are super simple. I've already done one. I'll also add, if you have sensitive LZs that you're trying to protect because of noise, it's the ideal machine because once you get it up in the air, it's super quiet. I love it. The factory R is real quick to get to its power band, but the EOS Quattro is so torquey that it just winds up very quickly. And I doubt you could tell the difference between the two machines when it comes to how quick they spool up. Another huge pro for me is the build quality of the EOS Quattro. It is absolutely on par with the factory R with its CNC machine parts, nice, sweet looking and sounding exhaust. And I would even argue that the carburetor on this is miles ahead of any of the two-stroke carburetors that I've seen so far. The Cayenne carburetor on this one is easy to jet, and as long as you keep good fuel in it and use it regularly, I doubt you will ever have to rebuild it anytime soon. It's absolutely awesome. So what are some of the things that I dislike? Well, in this particular case, a lot of the things that I dislike, I also like. For example, jetting the carburetor. Although it's inconvenient to have to jet the carburetor, it is nice that you can do it and not have to worry about burning up a piston like you do in a two-stroke if you lean it out. Adjusting the valves. I have already checked the valves on this machine and they were fine. I did that at the 10-hour service. And I've been told that on most four-stroke machines, adjusting the valves only happens occasionally, or sometimes you only have to adjust one that popped out of adjustment. I'm a little nervous about adjusting the valves, but from the videos I've watched and the instructions that EOS has provided in their manual, it actually looks super easy. So I'm not too worried about it, but I had to come up with some sort of dislike. Weight is not a dislike for me. The difference between having an all-up weight of 165 kilos and 160 kilos on my legs, I can't tell the difference. So that's not really a concern for me. And historically, I've always carried a lot of fuel in a two-stroke and made it weigh nearly as much as the Quattro does with the little fuel that I need to make the same flight. That pretty much sums it up, and I appreciate you watching. I hope it answers a lot of questions that people have on this machine. It really turned into not a flyable day. Hopefully we have good weather this week so I can fly.